Right, South Africa is continuing to mourn the passing of veteran politician, anti-apartheid activist, former PAC and COPE leader Mosiuoa Lekota, who died at the age of 77 after a long illness. Lekota's political life included being incarcerated in Robben Island to seeing the birth of democracy. His journey includes being a student activist, banished to Robben Island, becoming a UDF leader and then a cabinet minister. Lekota then went on to form the Congress of the People, COPE. Tributes continue to pour in from across the political spectrum. The nation is reflecting on the complex, sometimes controversial, but undeniably impactful legacy he leaves behind. Lekota's voice-shaped debates on constitutionalism, accountability, and the direction of South Africa's democracy, leaving a footprint that will continue to influence political discourse for years to come. We're now joined by Bloem, who is a former COPE spokesperson, as well as Reverend Frank Chikane, struggle veteran, to pay more tributes to the late Mosiuoa Lekota. Gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. A sad day in the history of South Africa, I would say. Mr. Bloem, let's start with you, perhaps. I mean, you stood shoulder to shoulder with Mosiuoa Lekota in the trenches of political activism at the birth of a COPE. What stands out to you as we get your reactions today? What stands out to you as a defining principle that guided his leadership?
Good afternoon, Unnati, and good afternoon to Reverend Frank Chikane and the viewers. I must say, Unnati, it's a very difficult time that we are going through. Comrade Terra was a great leader. You know, for the 44 years that I know Comrade Terra, I can say that the country have lost a great, great, great leader. Comrade Terra have stood his ground. Comrade Terra worked very hard to see the people of this country to be free. Comrade Terra never looked back. Even when things were very dark, Comrade Terra was always telling us that there is light at the end of the tunnel. That was Comrade Terra, a very visionary person who could see that this country will be free one day, even if it takes prison or death, but freedom will come one day. That was Comrade Terra.
And Reverend Chikane, let me bring you into this conversation. I mean, just taking off from what Mr. Bloem is saying, particularly those last parts in terms of his legacy and how he wanted to leave, South Africa. We know, of course, he was a student activist. He was then banished to Robben Island. I want to actually read a short passage in terms of what he wrote while he was in prison to his daughter. He said that I'm in prison for the sake of peace for our country and the world. I am in prison so that our generation may leave to yours and later generations a country and a world that has the greatest potential for progress. The greatest potential for progress, Reverend Chikane. When you obviously reflect on, Mr. Lekota's legacy and life, what for you stood out about him? And just having read that passage, how true to form has it actually become? Reverend, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Then I'm just saying greetings to you, your listeners, and Comrade Bloem there, who is part of this discussion. Let me just make it very simple.
Yeah.
Comrade Terra from 1972. So it's a long time ago when I arrived at the University of the North, which is now Limpopo. And we had to go that far because that's where Black students had to go as students. And he received us, he was secretary of the SRC, and Comrade Aubrey Mokoena was the president of the SRC. That's as far as I know him. And throughout his life, he has been a very committed cadre who was prepared to give his life for the cause of freedom and liberation of our people. He wasn't the type of person who really wanted to be the leader himself, but he wanted to be part of the struggle so that the people can then take over and run the country. Fortunately, he survived, like I did, and he was part of the new government, and the determination was clear. You wouldn't doubt Terra Lekota's commitment for liberation and transformation of the country, ending the apartheid system, and making sure that the people of South Africa live a peaceful life. So that note from prison reflects exactly who Terra is about.
Absolutely. Mr. Bloem, you know, in our introduction, we talked about the fact that the nation is reflecting now on his complex, sometimes controversial, but undeniable, impactful legacy that he leaves behind. I want to now talk about, you know, particularly your time together at COPE. I mean, how would you describe the influence on COPE's identity and the direction particularly that he took, especially during its most challenging times? How did he, you know, tackle some of those challenges that approached the party as COPE?
You know, Unati, I must say that Comrade Terra was a person of principle. Comrade Terra, when he believed in something, he believed and he will put his foot down. He will stand on that point that he believed in. And many people were seeing him as controversial and very confrontational. But that was his nature. I know Comrade Terra very well. I worked with Comrade Terra since he was released from Robben Island in 1982, when I met him at the Kroonstad prison gates, when it was very dark and nobody wanted to come near Comrade Terra. And anybody who the security police at that time was having an eye on, it was only me, his wife Cindy, and his late daughter, Mosiuoa, the only three, and surrounded by an army of security police. That man was a man of principle. I repeat, when he believed in something, he will stand, and he will stand fast on that point. And you must convince him that your views are wrong, and his views, he will also articulate his views. That was Comrade Terra. He was a very, very solid leader.
Yeah, and Reverend Chikane, you painted a beautiful picture in terms of, you know, how long you had known him. I mean, way back since 1972, I believe you said. What do you believe, and just having listened to Mr. Bloem, of course, what do you believe South Africans often misunderstood about Mr. Lekota? I mean, this is a man whose political path took several turns, right? I mean, from UDF leader to ANC minister, and later, of course, to COPE co-founder and leader. What do you think then were, for you, the greatest sticking points, and how was that misunderstood?
Well, I refuse to take this line of misunderstanding Comrade Terra. That's why I don't like pocketing him into one party.
Yeah.
Because what he was engaged in was not a one-party issue.
Yeah.
The issue is that we started together 72 when you couldn't even mention the name of the ANC. You went into jail if you tried it. And so we fought the struggle together as committed young people who wanted to end the apartheid system. The apartheid system was terrible and dehumanizing, and you couldn't miss it. I mean, you didn't have to be mobilized. And terror was, as the name says, I mean, he was terror in soccer. I played soccer with him as well at Teflo. We had clubs. But I mean, he's a very energetic person, boisterous, and when he believes in something, he sticks to it, and you have to really struggle to get him to move from whatever he believes in. For instance, when we were in the United Democratic Front, he was the publicity secretary, I was chairing the meetings, and he decided, no, but it's time for us to negotiate. And all of us said, no, but it's not time. We have to actually achieve certain objectives. We need the prisoners released. We need people in exile to come back. But when he's convinced, he pushes it. And you could actually write him off and say, "Hi, Terra, you are a reactionary." But that's who Terra is about. He believed in talking, he believed in negotiating, he believed in making peace. And where you think you are in a corner, Terra thought, no, but you can get out of this corner in a particular way. So I think that's where people misunderstand him.
Yeah.
I don't assign to a view. If he has a particular view which is different from us, it doesn't make him controversial. It makes him just different.
Yeah.
He was just wired differently.
Yeah.
Maybe use a more modern language. He was wired differently. He chaired the ANC Executive Committee for 2 terms. That's 10 years. And I was in that executive committee serving as a member. And I know him very well. So if you call him controversial, it's just because when he has ideas, he pushes for them, and you have to also engage him and get him to understand where you are as a collective.
Yeah, we're soon running out of time, but before we wrap up, Rev, I want to just stay with you. I think you raise a very important point, because I think context does matter, and looking at, Mr. Lekota's rich legacy, particularly in contributing and shaping, the country's democracy. As we wrap up our conversation, Rev, perhaps stay with you and that point in terms of what do you believe, South Africans should remember most about Mr. Lekota, particularly as somebody who was a freedom fighter, somebody who actually shaped the democracy of this country?
That's what actually he should be remembered for. He must be remembered for the sacrifices he made, for torture he went through, for serving a prison sentence. Before you get sentenced, you get tortured by the police. It's a very, I've gone through that process, except that I wasn't sentenced myself. And so that's what he must be remembered for. All the other issues about moving from one party to another, it's just part of history. But the overall thrust is that he was committed to liberating the people, and we achieved that objective. And we must respect him for that and honor him.
I want to ask you the same question, Mr. Bloem, as you give us your last reflections, but particularly also add perhaps, as COPE reflects too on his passing, what does the party see, of course, as its responsibility into carrying his legacy forward as the country collectively remembers his legacy at the moment?
Unati, I want to agree 100% with what Reverend Chikane have said. Comrade Terra was not a leader of COPE alone. That is a side issue. He was a national leader. That's why we, as the family, have decided that to honor Comrade Terra, we open our doors to all progressive political parties to honor Comrade Terra. We are not going to have it as a COPE alone issue. Comrade Terra was bigger than COPE. Comrade Terra was a national leader of the people of this country. We must remember Comrade Terra as one who have sacrificed his own life. He was prepared to go to the gallows twice for the freedom of his people. The last point, Nati, in his book that he wrote from prison, he said, and that thing struck me, he said, please forgive them because they don't know what they are doing. He was talking about the apartheid regime. That will stay in me for the rest of my life. Here's a person sitting on Robben Island for the second time, and he is pleading with us outside to forgive the people that have put Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu himself in prison. That is a great leader who is talking like that. No bitterness. I knew Comrade Terra very well. There was no bitterness at all in his heart. We must take that from him. A great man, Comrade Terra Lekota.
No bitterness in his heart. Mr. Bloem, thank you so much for your time. Reverend Chikane, appreciate your time too, sir. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your reflections. Of course, that is Dennis Bloem, who is the former COPE spokesperson, as well as Reverend Frank Chikane.